Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin. This episode has been a long time coming. We were just gabbing away before this show. That's how you know it's going to be an amazing episode. I'm so excited to welcome you, Sabine. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Caitlin. I am excited to be here and excited to have this conversation with you.
You're always such a light to this world, and you've already helped me so much. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about what you do, how you help your clients, and take us through some of that experience?
Yeah, so the formal answer is I serve as an executive coach and leadership development specialist, as well as a trainer for organizations. So my background is in HR, did that for a period of time and stepped out. But the real truth of what I do is really help people tap into the truth of who they are, get clear on what it is that they want, and actually go after it. And we can talk a little bit more about what that goes into, but it's really around holistic coaching and helping people discover or answer that question, who am I?
Beautiful. I feel like all of us have struggled with this. I remember in college when my professor first started talking about identity, and I was in like a philosophy class. Everybody else's eyes are like glassing over, and I'm like, identity. I want to know exactly what they're going to say. I love the concept of this. Can you explain to our listeners a little bit more about how you help your clients flush out who they are and maybe some of these like multiple identities that they experience and how you help them maybe even compartmentalize some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that are listening, right? So even I'm going to ask you this question. Who are you? Right? And starting with I am and listing it off. So when I work with leaders, I usually start with, okay, so who are you? And I'll get the list of, well, I'm senior vice president of dot, dot, dot. I'm a dad, I'm a mom, I'm a community leader, whatever it is, right? They go through all the titles, they go through all the identities. All right, cool. Who are you? Well, I'm compassionate, I'm thoughtful, right? And then now they're going through like competencies and all these attributes and whatnot. And then once they're done, who are you? And I get two responses, either pure frustration or like this look of, I don't know what else you want. I can't think of any other words to describe myself. And that's when, or, sometimes actually it's this long pause of, well, I guess I don't know. If everything I've shared isn't it, then I don't know. Or they'll ask me, well, who am I? Right. And the point of that exercise is because we are conditioned from, the time that we come into this world. Like we're told what our name is. We're told these individuals are our family. We're told all of these things from the moment that we can even start to receive information. And so most of us go through the world thinking that these external things, these external identities, these external labels that we have been given are actually who we are. And often it takes like some major catalyst in someone's life for them to really take that step back and ask, okay, well, if I wasn't senior vice president of this, if I wasn't a mom, if I wasn't the, lead of the PTA or whatever else that you've clung to as your identity, what's left? What's left? And that's a hard question for people to sit with, to even want to sit with, and then really unravel and remove to get to that core of who they are. And I think that that's such an important piece. And I say I work with leaders and executives and whatnot. That I believe everybody is a leader. So this is irrespective of titles. But I think it's very important, especially as your show is like the end in mind, right? When you are moving towards a mission, when you're moving towards a purpose, right? The thing that you get to do, the outcome is great, but it's really about who you're becoming in the process. And when you're not clear of who you are at the starting point, then it just becomes another thing that you do, another thing that you achieve, and you lose out on the opportunity to see the growth and the advancement that is happening with the human being that is experiencing it.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. It's like like you said, this communal example of what identities are versus how we really view ourselves, or what you said as well, like stripping back all of these titles. Does this exercise make your clients extremely emotional at times when they don't have the answer right away?
Yeah. So I deal with a lot of type A high achievers who always want to have the answer. And so it makes them emotional, but it's more frustration. It's more anger. It's more like disappointment that they didn't have the answer, which is still good, right? It doesn't matter. It's more of like, okay, now I've hit that like clink, that wall that they choose. Sometimes they choose not to, but that they get the choice to say, okay, I don't know this answer. Let me get curious. Let me get curious around what this answer could be. You're on mute.
I Oh, sorry, I just unmuted myself. We'll take that part out. But yes, I absolutely really value what you share with them and how you let them also like express their frustration. I know when finding my own identity and who I was, again, outside of the external, it was really hard for me. I actually had to grieve a lot of identities that I had also grown out of, and it's also an identity that I really wanted to fit into, but like I just wasn't quite there yet. And it was a whole emotional journey for me. I've shared a lot about it on this show. I call it my naked mole rat moments, stripping back everything and just me like looking at myself in the mirror, like, okay, what now? What's next? What's underneath?
Yeah.
Um,
And it's both a powerful and vulnerable space and moment in like our journey. I remember when I left corporate, I was in corporate for at the time like 12 or 13 years, and I had planned my exit and was ready to like make the leap into entrepreneurship, was just so super excited. And literally my last day was June 30th, 2018, and July 1st I woke up and like, I'm getting ready and I just looked in the mirror. Like I just had this moment. I was just like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Like, who am I now? And that question, I was not expecting to have that moment until I thought I was going to wake up and be like, oh my gosh, today's the greatest day, Freedom Day. But it wasn't. And part of that was because for 12, 13 years, my identity was I am this corporate professional, I'm an HR professional, I'm this, I'm that. And literally overnight, I wasn't that. And I didn't know, even though I planned for that day, I didn't plan for that moment of no longer having that identity to fall back on.
It's such a good point that I think all entrepreneurs hit. For myself, it was like I was so young when I made this leap. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm free. Like I can go to the grocery store at noon and no one can tell me I can't, for like 3 hours. I loved the flexibility of working out and like then I really realized, wow, I still have to like work. Like I can't just like grow a business from being in the gym all day. There needs to be a balance here. And I think a lot of our listeners face that as well. Like, first, the who am I? And then finding the balance of how to lead gen, but also still take care of yourself as an entrepreneur. And in our previous conversations, we talked about how much energy that takes as well. How do you help your clients when they're in that aha moment, like you were yourself? And what did you experience in the next upcoming moments and months as you started to take more action or redevelop who you were outside of your career?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So first part of it of working with the client specifically is once we can get it takes a process to get to the who am I, right? So we're having that conversation to get clear on who am I. And when the answer is not clear, then that's perfect because now we have this, clean slate to really start to craft who are we or who do you want to become? And so I do a lot around values work. I think that that's the foundation, right? Knowing what your values are. And there's so much out there, right? People want like all of these like really cool things, like I'm authentic, I'm this, I'm that. But at the core, like what are the things that are your non-negotiables? And I think values are so important because for me, and the way that I work with my clients is you use them as your anchors. You use them, when you're making decisions, whether it's the decision of, where to purchase your stuff, which vendors to work with, they become your anchor that you are so grounded in. They are also how you express yourself in the world. And I remember I was doing this exercise with a client and she was just like, well, I mean, I felt like I was just picking like all the, the good words that you ought to you ought to want as your values. And I was like, okay, well then don't do that. If those words don't resonate at the core, family was one of the options, right? And there was like this, oh, it should be family. Like one of my values should be family because I'm family oriented. And I was just like, okay, well, are you going to make all your decisions centered around, whether it's good for your family? Like, what does that mean? Why would you make family a value? And we go through the process, and she realized, she was like, well, actually, family isn't a value. Like it's something I value. Like I value family and for family orientation, but that's not my core value. And she had to give herself permission to even just say that and accept that as her truth. So I think, in society, again, we're conditioned that like these things, these noble things should be our values. But if they're not true to who you are, then you're not showing up in the world as your authentic self. So we go through with values. We also take a look at like what's important to you, like that question of like magic wand. What do you want? Right? Like if I could wave this magic wand and you could be X or you could be doing X today, what do you want? That's the second question. That's the second hardest question for my clients to answer beyond who are you? One, because again, we start shoulding on ourselves where I should want this, I should want that, whether it's because such and such has it or, it's what society deems as successful. Getting people to get clear on what they want, and these are successful people, right? So they know how to go after things. That's not the issue. But when you take away all that stuff, it's just like, what do you want? I want an easy life. I don't want to work so hard, right? Like, okay, great. But then you deal with the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment, the disappointment, whatever that comes with the fact that like you don't want to have to work so hard. So we go through this process of one, like it's almost like a step forward. And then they have to realize that, okay, well, if this is my value, which ones do I get to let go of because they were my parents' values or they're the values that society told me that I had to let go, and then really embodying and embracing that. And then when it comes to what do they want, like getting really honest, like if you want to be a multimillionaire, like that's okay. It's not selfish. And we have all these messages, well, there are poor people, there are hungry people. Yes, there are. And you get to want to be a multimillionaire if that's really truly what you want and what your desire is. So we go through that. We go through that process first foundationally, and then we figure out, okay, if this is who you are, this is what you value, this is what you want. Now let's map out how to actually get there and reverse engineering it back.
Wow. It's so great. Like, I've had people ask me my values, but I love how you really question them. Like, why is this a core value? It's not like they just send you their list and then you're like, okay, great, like mission accomplished. It's like, let's actually get to the root cause. I know for myself, especially when you were talking about money and becoming a millionaire, when I started working with someone, they asked me why I wanted money and like
Mm.
what I wanted to do with the money. And that had never been asked before, to me. And I was like, actually, I would love to just make this amount of money because that would give me an easy life. And like I always tell my coaching clients one on one, if you're listening, you know who I'm talking about. I'm like, I'm talking to you. I'll say all the time, like, I don't want to work. Like, that's not, I started this business to not work, and collect a paycheck and build more prosperity, but also spread more kindness in the business world. But it took a long time to get there. And it seems like with your clients, you're able to help them shorten the process, which I find is extremely valuable, no pun intended, but definitely time is money, right? Time is where entrepreneurs really find a lot of efficiency in what they do. Do you tend to work with people in corporate America as well? And do they ever leave their jobs? This is just out of like curiosity. Once they do this value exercise, are they like, why did I put myself in this position? This is crazy,
Funny enough, in the time that we've worked together, no one has ever left, but everyone has come to the decision that they're going to need to leave. So it's an interesting thing. And the people that I've been working with in corporate, and this is shifting, but have been more like at the director level of their like corporate career. So they're like mid-career at that stage. And understandably, some life situations, right? Like they have young kids, and so they have a process they have to go through. And they're also not coming to me with the foundation of like, oh, I want to work with you because I'm ready to leave. It just becomes the byproduct of our work together that they realize that, oh, I can't really fully be me, get what I want, and be that person and make the impact in this particular place. One thing I wanted to share, going back off of one thing you said, is that, part of the reasons of getting clear and asking those questions why is that our subconscious mind, and I know you've done a lot of work around mindset here, right? Like our ability to manifest something is based on our belief that is centered around the thought and the emotion, right? So it's one thing to say, I want to be a millionaire, right? Okay, cool. That's stuck in your conscious mind as just another idea, as just another thought. But when you can do the work of really getting clear of like, wow, I want to be a millionaire because it's going to give me peace. I will have freedom. I will get to experience joy. I will get to help people. Like you put emotion towards it. That's what signals to your subconscious mind that this is real. And that's what activates the universe to say, oh no, we gotta fulfill this order. Right. But if it's just a thought that you have, just like the values, right? If it's just like, oh yeah, integrity is my value, authenticity is my value, there's no connection there. We make things happen, we create and we manifest the life that we want through the thoughts and the emotions that we are able to create. And you can only do that when you're honest with yourself and you get to the core of the why.
Yeah. Wow. It's like it's so profound. I hope our listeners are taking notes because I am. And it's really at the crux of what true manifestation is. And I feel like that's what you definitely help your clients achieve. And even knowing, and I'm sure they say this to you, like, I might not be able to leave my job tomorrow, but I have an exit strategy. Like those were conversations that I had with a lot of people that I've worked with in and outside the corporate world. And sometimes all you need is that beacon of light. And I knew for myself when I didn't give myself what I needed when I was working in a semi corporate, it was more of a small family owned nonprofit, but I hated it. Like I hated being in the office every day. I actually just hit a breaking point
Mhm.
where I just quit one day and it didn't feel good, like I had wished that I'd give myself the support that I needed to make the exit strategy. So it's all a part of that emotional aspect too. It's like making yourself feel safe in this environment because you know it's going to come to an end and it doesn't feel like you're chained to this desk forever into like the abyss of the future. It can seem so daunting for people, which I
Yeah.
think is why they run from it. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, interesting. So as you were talking, it made me think of a conversation that I was having with someone around how there are two types of people. And maybe there are more, but I've identified two, right? So they're the ones who, they create environments where it becomes like, or they're in environments and they start to get signals that the environment isn't what they need it to be, right? And because of fear, doubt, insecurity, worry, all of the things, right? They stay in that environment and then they start stewing around like how this environment isn't for them and all the things that they hate. And then they just have this like moment of like, okay, I'm going to leap off the cliff here. Then there are the people who experience the same thing and they are so like willing to hold on because they don't believe that there's better. And then something happens where they get laid off or the company like changes directions or something like that, right? And both people end up in the space where like one feels empowered by their decision of like, okay, I couldn't take it anymore and I left and I made this decision and it feels good. And then the other person feels somewhat of a victim in that, like, I can't believe this happened to me, even though that's exactly what they wanted. I have this theory that, for some of us who have a core belief that life is meant to be hard, or that like things have to be hard in order for you to earn them, we are the ones who, and I'm saying we as because I'm part of that crew, we create those situations where it becomes that like all or nothing. Whereas, the other side of that can be in that moment of, okay, this, whatever lesson I was meant to learn, I've learned it here. Whatever skill I was meant to learn, I've learned that skill here. And now let me start looking ahead and planning towards that, where it could be this easier transition. But people who are able to do that, they have that core belief that I trust myself. I trust that I can be guided. I trust that every step that I take, there's this prayer that I pray, and it's a biblical reference, but it's you are the light of the world and the lamp to my feet, right? And so that is my thing, my reminder that like God is like, there's light, right? And every step that I take forward, like my feet are literally being lit moving forward. So I say all that to say, for especially for those who are listening, think about where you are right now. Are you in that place where like you feel that tug to leave, and you're either like clinging harder because you're making all these justifications, or are you just going to take that leap? Before you take that leap, ask yourself, do I believe and do I actually trust myself on the other side of this? Because if you're going to make that decision to take that leap and you don't have that safety net, you don't have, or you don't feel like you have that support, before you do it, there's that moment of like resonance of like, okay, wait, yes, this is too much. Yes, it's time for me to go. But does it have to be drop off the cliff? Can I trust? Can I ask, right? The universe, God, whatever it is that you believe in, to light this pathway where the end result is still the same. I leave, but I get to at least leave in a supported gurney versus, falling off the cliff.
Yeah. Wonderful. I got chills when you gave that biblical reference. That's really beautiful. And there is always a path ahead, like you mentioned. But like, I know in my experience, I was like so scared when I just took the leap that it could have been way more supported and could have felt a lot more natural. I've learned that now as I've gotten older, even with like, maybe letting go clients or a team member. Like, it's like, you don't just fire someone because you're not getting along with them that day, that would be like totally inappropriate. But a lot of us react out of that emotion, which, as you mentioned, leads back to the manifestation of our reality. So it's like all connected in this inner circle. For our listeners too, I know for me, it was a tough pill to swallow when someone like looked me in the face and said, you've created like this shit show for yourself. You're gonna have to like fix it now. And I was like, oh gosh, like I guess I am in a bit of a shit show because I should have just planned it better. I should have leaned into my intuition prior to the exiting, but it wasn't a part of my journey. And like you said, it may have had to hit rock bottom in order to reach the level of awareness and the healing that I needed to face, to get there. Is that ever what your clients explain to you as well? Do they hit those moments in their lives? Like, I know when my dad died, it changed a lot of my perspective on life. Have they had experiences like that too that kind of draw them to you?
Yes. And it's interesting. So I am always curious about the people who are drawn to me. We were talking about this a little bit in the green room, right? Because we know that like we're mirrors of each other, right? In one form or fashion, whether it's the current version of us, the past version of us, a future version of us that is coming towards us. And so when my clients come to me, I'm always, outside of like the presenting problem or whatever, I'm always curious, like when I start to dig into how they think, what they think about themselves, how they see life, how they perceive their ability to impact the world while they're here. I'm always like, okay, well, which version of Sabine is this? right? Like I know I'm here to help them, but I also fully recognize that they're here to help me in some capacity. Most of my clients are have been, and this is a funny thing, and why I was actually pushed to level up, right? I was actually pushed into my growth. My most recent growth and transformation season was because I had a period of about 2.5 years where all of my clients were past versions of Sabine. And I didn't recognize it like early on, right? This has been through the growth, but it got to one point last year where I was just like, okay, wait a minute. Because at first, like you're like, oh, okay, I totally get where they are. I understand. I know exactly where this is. I can guide them. And I was oblivious to the fact that like this was them showing me present me where I thought, I had advanced past that. And so I got to the point where I realized, okay, well, what I started getting curious about what are the themes here? What are the challenges that they're having? What are the beliefs what keeps coming up? Because at that point I was just like, okay, it was exhausting. If I'm being honest, it was exhausting, it was draining. And I was just like, okay, what am I missing? What theme is coming up here that they are gifting me in this process? And it wasn't until I turned the mirror around that I was able to see like, oh, okay, so you still have these feelings, these beliefs of unworthiness, right? Because they were coming to me where like, oh, well, I should have been promoted. Like it was like surface level stuff where like I've done all the work, I'm putting in the extra time, I'm not being valued, and all that word not feeling valued, or that term not feeling valued, kept coming up, kept coming up, kept coming up. And I had to take a step back and be like, oh, Sabine, where don't you feel valued? Where is it that you don't feel valued? Where is it that you don't feel seen or appreciated or supported? And so I had to, again, do that mirror moment and deal with all of my stuff in that space. And in the gift that they gave to me was, and obviously my awareness in doing the work was me realizing that I was playing it safe with, you know, the type of people that I was attracting. I was playing it safe, and also there was a reflection of me. So I decided, okay, well, let's shift that, Sabine. If you want to feel valued, if you want to feel appreciated, if you want to feel supported, how do you need to show up? What do you need to do differently? How will you ask for your needs to be met without expecting people to figure it out? I used to pull out the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? For all of you who aren't familiar with that, it's in a pyramid form, right? So it goes from like your basic physiological needs all the way to self-actualization. I've since learned that when he originally created it, it was actually a linear thing, and they made it this pyramid. But I started finding myself like when I was in a place of frustration or not feeling valued or not supported or whatever, I would pull up the Maslow's. Okay, Sabine, what is it that you need? Where is it that there's a gap in you that it's now showing up in your outer reality? Was it loving, belonging, and community? Was it your physical needs? Was it esteem? Right. And so I had to get honest. And that's the way that I learned how to even label my actual needs, just so I know, okay, Sabine, you need love and belonging right now, right? Like that's the need, that's the gap for you. And so that led me to start looking for communities of like where I could be myself, I could feel supported. And so I'm sharing all that to share is that like literally we are mirrors of each other, especially if you're entrepreneurs and you're finding yourself asking like, okay, why are these clients so frustrating? Or maybe you love your clients, right? They're still teaching you something. There's still an opportunity for you to grow and develop in that.
It's so good. I feel like our pre-green room, as you mentioned, I love that term. I'm going to use that all the time now. Before we got on, we were talking about this. And thank you so much for sharing your experience and the vulnerability that comes with it, too. The vulnerable side of what we do is challenging to share. And as coaches, as personal development leaders, Everyone thinks that we have it all figured out all the time when in fact, like, we are just the trailblazers that are in front of them trying to machete down the way, right? And it's sometimes the most difficult place to be in. But I think that that's why your clients value you, through sorry, that keeps going off, through experiencing what you have in your life and then sharing this with them. I love that you leaned into the Maslow's needs and all of that. I have heard of that before. I think I actually learned it in college through this psychology class that I was just mentioning too. And I think a lot of people don't know what they need and don't know how to give it to ourselves, let alone ask for others to give it to us, and go to the external. So I commend you for doing that. And I think that's a great exercise for anybody that isn't feeling like they're maybe understanding what they need in the moment.
Yeah. It's funny. We were talking about intuition before. It's just like I can't even tell you why like that was the thing. It was just like, okay, I have a need. And I literally was just like, I don't know what the need is. And I just remembered it was probably like some intuitive insight. I just remembered I was like, oh, okay, there's needs listed on there. Maybe I can identify one. And yeah, that was my way of shifting that. And I think curiosity, and doesn't matter what it is that you do, but like if you can get curious or allow yourself to be curious, like when you think about when we're little kids, right? We know nothing. Think about how often little kids are like, well, why? What's this? What does it do? What like that's how we learned. And then at some point we decide, okay, I've got life figured out, and we stop being curious. And I think there's a difference between learning information and actually being curious, because when you're curious, it opens up your mental faculties, right? So it opens up your perception, it opens up your imagination, it opens up your intuition, it opens up your reasoning, right? Your will, and even your memory. So curiosity is almost like the opening to what's really happening on the inside of us, and we can connect to the broader universe in much greater way versus if we're in the space of like, I know it all, or I'm just going to look up information just so I have additional information. There's something magical when we get curious. And for those of you who are listening, it's literally just when we ask something I just thought about, when we ask ourselves the question of, well, how can I do this? Right. And you've probably heard this. If you ask yourself, well, how can I figure this out? Most of the time we'll draw a blank, right? Because if we knew how, we would be doing it. It's not in our Rolodex. What could I have, or what could I use, or what could I do to support me in this? Just shifting the way that you ask that question now gives your mind some space to be like, oh, okay, let's explore. Right. Just little things like that. I remember I used to have a coach, and this was more of like money mindset coaching, right? It's just like when you hear people say, like, I don't know how I can afford that. I don't know how I can make that happen, right? It's shifting what would it take for me to afford that? What would it take for me to be able to make that happen? Right? That's the shift into curiosity that opens up more possibilities to us.
And then being able to take advantage of the opportunity as it presents itself, which you and I were also chatting about, and being able to take the inspired action to make it work. It's so good. Everything you shared today. I'm so inspired every time I speak with you. And I always leave like, wow, I have so much to think about, which I love. I am a thinker. I'm sure as the listeners know, I'm always like, the astrology, like I'm constantly thinking about things. I find it to be inspiring. And that's what I loved about when you and I first met. You inspire so many people. You've inspired me today. I know you've inspired the listeners. Can you tell us how we can get in touch with you, how everyone can stay connected and continue to learn from you and your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I just thought of something to share, like one practical tool. So when I was in corporate, we had it was a version of Six Sigma, right? So Basically there's a process of 5 whys, right? So it used to be like when something broke down and they would ask why did it break down? And it was just a way to problem solve really and get to the root cause of a particular issue. And I found that to be very powerful in whatever development space that you're in, right? So again, we were talking about the values, right? Okay, my values integrity. Why? Well, because X, Y, and you just keep going down until you get to the root of it. You can literally use that 5 whys for anything, right? If you want something, if you want to create something, if something's happening that is, that you don't like, right? Why is it happening? One great question, another great question is, why am I creating this experience? When like you're experiencing something you don't like and you don't necessarily want, asking yourself, why am I creating this experience? And using the 5 whys. So I just wanted to throw out a practical tool there. As far as where they can find me, I hang out on LinkedIn and Instagram, primarily in LinkedIn under my name, Sabine Gedeon. And of course, you can connect with me on my website at sabinegedeon.com.
Yay! And can you tell us about your program as well that you're launching in upcoming weeks? I can't wait for the
Yes.
listeners to hear. And then I
Thank you.
just also wanted to share really quickly, I love how you connected the curiosity to our childhood selves. And I'm still like processing that because I just think it's so wonderful. And I also believe that there's so much we can unlock in our childhood selves through curiosity and the intuitive part. So thank you so much for the 5 whys. I'm actually going to ask myself that once we get off on all these different topics.
I'm glad to give you some homework. So yes, I am launching the Aligned Leader Circle, and basically it is a small curated group for executives, founders who are at that place of transition in their lives. And when I say transition, it means you have built the thing, whatever that thing is, and now you're feeling this tug to either not necessarily shift and pivot completely away, but level up to that next level. And there's a bit of hesitation. There's a bit like you're not clear of what that looks like. And often what I found with type A, high achieving, successful people is that when we don't have a clear path of like how A to B to C to D gets us to Z, we freeze. Our nervous systems puts us in that fight or flight or freeze state. And so the opportunity here is to really address what is it causing that freeze. And often, because most of the time it's because you don't really truly yet believe that that next state is possible for you. So doing the work of building that self-trust so that you could actually move forward, because I believe that we're just in a state and in an era where people are feeling tugged stronger than ever. And I don't want that fear or that unconscious awareness of like, this is what's happening to be the reason why people don't really step into their the fullness of their greatness. So it's a 3-month program to help leaders who, again, it's time to step into bigger. You need the support, you need the camaraderie, and you need the tools to be able to step into bigger. We launch on May 12th. As of the time of this recording, it will be repeated, but the first launch, the inaugural launch, is May 12th.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. If you are experiencing fear as our listeners, like I know I am, so I feel like collectively everyone is a little bit, let's be honest, the self-awareness is here. Hold up the mirror, take advantage of this opportunity. This could be exactly what you need. It's coming at the perfect time. There's a reason why you've heard this today. So, thank you so much again. This was so powerful, and I just always love speaking with you.
Same. Oh, and I forgot to add, it would be at sabinegedeon.com/aligned.
And yes, for our multitasking listeners, we'll have all the links below. In case you need to connect with Sabine, message me. I will connect you all on LinkedIn or IG, whichever seems more fitting. And feel free to ask me questions too, and I'll send you her way. Thank
Awesome.
you.